Amen. Okay, well, good morning, everybody. Good morning. We are continuing to study today, 1 Samuel 26. And I was busy talking about my dog and didn't get myself ready, but here we go. All right, 1 Samuel 26, verses 12 through 25. All right, who can tell me, Pastor Cheryl taught last week, so who can give me a summary of last week's lesson? Summary of last week's lesson. Give me the highlights. Nobody was here last week?
Okay, I'll say some of the highlights was Abigail trying to make amends for the sin of her husband, trying to not so much justify, but more or less try to just make an amends for what he had done. And because I don't know, I don't know, her husband was something else. He had control issues or something, I don't know. But and so she tried to make amends for what he was doing. And I don't know, that's basically what I was doing. She was just trying to just make amends for it.
Okay, so that was in chapter 25.
Yeah, that was the biggest thing.
Okay, so that was chapter 25. What happened in 1 Samuel 26, 1 through 11?
Oh, 1 through 11.
Okay. Yeah.
Wrong.
So you were absolutely right on 25. Absolutely.
Saul still trying to find David and do him bodily harm as usual, but
as per usual, as they say, right?
But basically everything turned around, and I think Saul and his men let their guard down. They got sleepy.
They got sleepy. Okay. Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Anything else to add? Anybody else? Where did this chapter take place? Where did 1 Samuel 26 take place?
In the hills, am I saying this right? Aquila?
Sure. Aquila. Yes.
And what's the Zippa? Z, what is a Z-I?
Ziph. Ziph is the area.
Area.
Yeah.
And let me see where else. Jeshimon, or is that another?
Yeah. So if we go back to verse 1, the Ziphites went to Saul at Gibeah and said, "Is not David hiding on the hill of Hakila, which faces Jeshimon?" Okay. So what do we know about Ziph? I think Pastor Cheryl talked this a little bit last week. What do we know about Ziph? The place Ziph. Jocelyn, they leaving you out here all by yourself. Watsika.
Yes.
Morning.
Oh, good God. I thought I was on mute.
I'm so glad you're here.
I looked over. I said,
what do we know about Ziph? Ziph. The place of Ziph.
I don't know. I just know they was from the tribe of Judah consistently.
Yes, keep going.
They're part of David's tribe. Am I right? They're part of his soldier, but they were fought against him. They always fought for Saul. I don't know. They were spies for Saul. I don't know.
You're getting there. You're getting there. So it was a
I'm getting
region.
there, huh?
You
Okay.
are. You are. There were a region located near the territory of Judah. And who were the Ziphites descendants of?
Didn't they come out of David's family or something? I mean,
Not David. Not
no.
David. A little further back. So who were the two? So there were spies, right? There were spies that
Right.
Moses sent. So who were the two spies that came back and said, we need to go forward? Remember, there were 12 spies he sent. 10 of them came back and said, we look like grasshoppers in their eyes, which that was their own thinking, right? But who are the two spies that came back and said, no, we can actually win if we just go?
This is probably be all you're gonna hear from me, Joshua and Caleb.
Okay, so between Joshua and Caleb, all right, I'll take that. So Caleb, the Ziph people were likely descendants of Caleb. So what makes that very interesting is everything they did, though, was completely against David. To your point, Watsika, they were absolutely against David. Everything that they did, there was a couple of instances where they were the ones who betrayed David to Saul to say where he was, which they did again.
Yes.
26. Exactly. So that's why I want to make sure we're all clear on who's who and where's where. All right, so let's read. And let's start at 1 Samuel 12, 26. 1 Samuel 26, verses 12 through 14. Watsika, you got your contacts in or your glasses today? Are you there, Watsika? Let me check who's in our participants today. Who I can
Oh,
get.
I'm sorry. I thought I was reading though.
Okay, so read. Okay, all right. If you read,
12.
please.
12. Okay. So David took the spear and the water jug near Saul's head, and they left. No one saw or knew about it, or did anyone wake up. They were all sleeping because the Lord had put them into a deep sleep. You want me to keep going?
Yeah, please.
Okay. Then David crossed over to the other side and stood on top of the hill some distance away. There was a wide space between them. Okay, wait a minute. I'm trying to roll this thing up. Crap. I'm sorry. Hold on, y'all, please. Because I'm reading off of your thing here. You know what? No,
You need to read the last
my
one?
book. Okay, 14. We had 14, right? 26 from it. Who we had? 27?
26, verse 14.
14. Okay. He called out to the army and to Abner, son of Ner. Aren't you going to answer me, Abner? Abner replied, who are you who calls to the king?
Okay. All right, so let's pause. Yep, pause there. Okay, so Watsika or anybody else, what is happening right here? What's happening here?
They appear to be, if you go to 13 and 14, it appears that someone has, that David has crossed up to the other side and he's calling out to Abner, the king. And they're responding, why are you calling out to this king?
Okay, so is Abner the king?
No.
Okay, I thought you said they called out to Abner the king.
Well, they called out to Abner for the king.
Or on behalf.
Right.
So who's calling? Who's calling him?
I think it's David.
David is calling. So David's now on the opposite side of this, let's call it a ravine, if there's two hills. On the opposite side of this ravine. He has the spear and he has the water jug of King Saul. Now, if you read before that, which is what James was alluding to, it says that the king was situated in the center of all of his troops, of his army, right? That's a place of protection. He's fully surrounded by everybody. And so for David and his person who's with him, to get to that point, they got to pass through a number of people. So again, we talk about God's providence and God being ever present and over all things and ruling all things. So they were all sleeping because the Lord had put them into a deep sleep. So God had orchestrated all of this. He had orchestrated all of this. So he's holding this, he has this jug and he has this spear that there's no way he could have gotten without walking in and getting it, because nobody brought it to him, right? Hold on, let me let some people in here. There we go. So there was no way he could have gotten in without everybody seeing him. So now David is in a position of feeling kind of powerful and cocky. Verse 14, he says, Abner, aren't you going to answer me? Who are you? And then Abner's like, who are you who calls to the king? Because what has just happened? They've woken up out of this sleep, this deep sleep, and wondering like, what? You know, you wake up and somebody's talking, you're like, who, what's going on? So now we talk about what's going on. Who are you who calls to the king? All right, let's move on. Jackie, can you read this for me? Do you mind?
Yes. 15. David said, "You're a man, aren't you? And who is like you in Israel? Why didn't you guard your lord the king? Someone came to destroy your lord the king. What you have done is not good. As surely as the
Okay,
Lord lives."
pause there. I'm sorry. Jackie, that verse right there that you just read, what is this insinuating? Like if you're on both sides, play both sides for me. You're David and you're Abner. How are you feeling with this statement right here?
So David's saying to Abner, you're supposed to be a big man. You're supposed to be a strong man. You're supposed to be the man that is the man to protect to protect Saul.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, what's going on?
What's going on? Because somebody got in.
Mm-hmm.
He didn't even say who yet. He was like, somebody got in. And
Yep.
I saw it and you didn't. All right, keep reading.
What you have done is not good. As surely as the Lord lives, you and your men must die because you did not guard your master, the Lord's anointed. Look around you. Where are the king's spear and water jug that were near his head?
Mm-hmm.
Saul recognized David's voice and said, "Is that your voice, David, my son?" David replied, "Yes, it is my lord, the king."
All right. Okay. So David has called out Abner at this point. Dude, this is worthy of death. Look. And David is holding it. So now Saul is awake, recognizes David's voice and says, "Is that your voice, David, my son?" Now, what we got going on here, people? What's going on here? Verse 17.
Well, not long ago.
Not long ago.
I mean, we got to remember, not long ago, David and Saul have had a conversation after David didn't kill him in the cave.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And David, when he leaves, Saul makes a promise to him and says some stuff and recognizes that he's loyal. And now we come on this next move where David, who is a godly man, is now calling out the men next to the godly man, next to who he calls the chosen, anointed one, and asking them, why are you not protecting him the way that you ought to be protecting him as the anointed one? And then when Saul wakes up and Saul is able to hear the voice, he recognizes David's voice because David has always been like a son to him and protected him.
Even though he's been trying to kill him on multiple.
Especially since he recognizes that he could have killed him more than once.
Yeah. Go ahead, Jocelyn.
Yes. No, I was just agreeing with you.
Okay. Yes, absolutely. So David, when you think about verse 16, David is really implying to Abner that he cares more for King Saul than Abner does, because otherwise you would have kept him safe. And now we get to verse 17, which is exactly what James said, is now we get back to this place. Saul is doing what Saul does, in my opinion. Is that you, my son? Trying to again kind of endear himself to David. And what is David's response? How does David respond?
In an honorable way. Yes, I am.
Honorable
Your son.
way.
Yeah.
Yeah, my Lord the King, I am still reverencing you. Despite everything up to this point, I still reverence you as my Lord, someone I will follow and take orders from, and my King. All right, let's keep reading. Let's see who I got on here. Annie Ruth, do you mind reading what's on the screen?
Oh, no, I don't mind. And he added, why is my Lord pursuing his servant? What have I done? And what wrong am I guilty of? Now let my Lord the king listen to his servant's words. If the Lord has incited you against me, then may he accept an offering. If, however, people have done it, may they be cursed before the Lord. They have driven me today from my share in the Lord's inheritance and have said, go serve other gods. Now do not let my blood fall to the ground far from the presence of the Lord. The king of Israel has come out to look for a flea, as one who hunts a partridge in the mountains.
All right, thank you. So verse 18, David is continuing to ask the question, and he asks this question pretty much every time. Why are you chasing me? Right? Why? What is your deal, man? Like, what have I done and what wrong am I guilty of? Now in verse 19, David is kind of giving Saul a way to repent. He says, now let the Lord my king listen to his servant's words. Just listen to me for a minute. If the Lord has incited you against me, then may he accept an offering. If, however, people have done it, may they be cursed before the Lord. So David is giving Saul an out to say, hey, if God is the one who's telling you to be against me, okay, I accept it. But if it's people, then, you know, that's a different issue. Because why do we know that Saul was after David? Why do we know that he's been trying to kill him multiple times?
Well, Saul's own son has acknowledged that that his dad was going to kill him, and we've got tests that David has put him through to see if he's trying to get him, and Samuel has passed all those tests, proving that he's after David.
Mm-hmm. But why?
And he sent armies after him.
Correct. But why? What is Saul's sole reason? And I'll put an S on it because there's probably multiple reason that he wants to kill David.
Because
he knows he's going to take his kingship.
That's one. What else? Jealous.
Okay.
Jealous. At the end of the day, it's where it begins and ends. He's jealous of him. When did he become jealous of David for the very first time? Think back. When was the first time Saul became jealous of David?
When he killed the giant.
When he killed Goliath.
No, not yet. Nope.
Not yet.
Too
Oh,
far.
okay.
Nope.
hello,
After that.
this is hello.
Yes.
What was when he killed? I can't remember the numbers of men. David killed his
Saul killed his thousands.
Yeah.
David killed his 10,000.
That's when it happened.
The people. Yeah.
That's when it happened. And who was saying that? You think back now we know
The
all
people.
the people.
Yeah.
The people were singing when they came back from battle, right? Everybody cheers. Woo, woo, we won. And the women were singing, Saul killed his thousands, David killed his 10,000s. That's when it started.
Right.
That's when it started.
And that embarrassed him.
And it embarrassed him.
Mm-hmm.
But why? And somebody taught on this. I don't remember which of us taught it. It wasn't me, but somebody taught on this. But if you were the one in charge, this is like when you're the president of a company, or you're the leader over a team, or a coach. We're in the middle of March, getting ready to start March Madness basketball. As the coach, do you have the ability to play the game?
No,
No. All you can do is what?
coach.
Coach. Stand on the sideline, pray that they do everything that you taught them in practice, and give them direction. When you see things going left, right, not the way it's supposed to, give them direction. But you can't play the game. So when your team wins, it's with you. If your team loses, you're still a part of it. So the fact that Saul was really kind of feeling like, because the king really shouldn't, I mean, the king did fight, but the job is not for the king to fight. The job is for the king to have people around him and good troops, good armies, good generals who can execute the fighting on his behalf and the behalf of the kingdom. So the
Hey,
fact
Kristen.
that, yes, babe.
If the king is fighting,
Mm-hmm.
you're losing.
Yep. Now say more. I love that, but say more.
Well, the reason is the king is the last line of defense
Should be.
for the nation. There are all these other things that the king puts in place before he himself has to go out and do. He's known as a warrior, but he's the warrior that then goes out when everything else has failed. The king's job is to challenge the other warrior. And that's what David became. It was so scary for Saul, because what should have happened is one of his other men should have gone out and fought before David, who was an unlisted servant, fought. And so Saul technically should have fought before David did,
Mm-hmm.
because David wasn't in the army. And so what happens is David takes the space of the king way back then, and Saul recognizes he's got a problem because this young man survived it.
Yeah.
Right? See,
Yeah.
if David had lost, the king would have been able to say, we're not done yet, I'm the king. But David won.
Mm-hmm.
So now he's got this hero to the nation.
Yeah.
And so here we go again with Saul. Saul is the king now. And yet he doesn't serve the role of king, because David has stepped in so many times to do that which he should have been doing.
All true and accurate. Yes. All right. Let's keep moving. Let's see. James, do you have your Bible handy? You can read these last. If not, I can call some of them.
I can read them
Okay.
off your screen.
Yep. Thank you.
21. Then Saul said, I have sinned. Come back, David, my son, because you considered my life precious today. I will not try to harm you again. Surely I have acted like a fool and have been terribly wrong.
Okay, pause. What's different? What's different this time versus the other times?
You mean when they came out the cave?
No, this verse and Saul's response. What's different this time versus the other times?
Well, he's acknowledging he has actually sinned.
Has he not done that before?
No, before he's always just said, as my servant, I should not have gone after you. But he didn't say he sinned. This is the first time I hear him say, I have sinned.
Okay. Anybody else?
Let's see, what verse we on? 26.
26 verse.
Oh, he also is asking David to come back home, and where I don't think he did that before. Trying to think what else was my notes. Yeah, I mean,
I didn't put it all down in my notes, but that's one of the things. He asked him to come back home, and he's saying that
he will no longer try to kill him.
Mm-hmm.
so that's what I had in my notes.
Okay. All right. Keep reading, please, sir.
22.
22.
Here is the king's spear. David answered, let one of your young men come over and get it. The Lord rewards everyone for their righteousness and faithfulness. The Lord delivered you into my hands today, but I would not lay a hand on the Lord's anointed.
Okay, so let's stop there. So we talked last week and in previous times, whenever David has had the opportunity to kill Saul. And David has always said, I will not touch the Lord's anointed, even when an opportunity has presented itself. So in this case, if the Lord delivered him into his hands, is that saying that God gave him an opportunity to kill him? How do you take that to mean? The Lord delivered you into my hands today, but I would not lay a hand on the Lord's anointed.
I believe that David would believe that regardless, he had the opportunity. God did give him the opportunity that he could make the choice, but he still honored the position of of Saul as king, and knew that God would position him, so ultimately God would he would avenge David, and that he wouldn't have to be the one that actually would do it. And he would end up being in his space as king in the time that God would place him there. Kind of thinking that.
Okay. Anybody else?
I kind of see something different in comparison to when the last time, if I'm not mistaken, when David had come close, he had actually cut off the piece of the cloth of his robe.
Mm-hmm.
And this, to me, this was like a place of showing David where he can see himself, even his growth in that area, that, even though the Lord delivered Saul into his hands, he had the opportunity to do harm to him. He even moved very differently from even that last time when he didn't put a hand on Saul. He didn't even really touch anything near Saul's body this time. He took the water and took the spear. So I see it as a mirrored opportunity where, David could really, even though, hey, here's the same or similar test that comes again his way, and he could actually see that, hey, yes, I'm not touching the Lord's anointed, and truly stand firm in that, if that makes sense.
Okay. Okay. Anybody else? I'm reading this and I'm saying, why did the Lord deliver him into his hands? There's a contradiction there. James always talks about the words, right? But is the opposite. Go ahead, huh?
I guess where I'm struggling a little bit, and I've had to read this about 3 different times just to kind of grab it, but here's the dilemma for me. Notice he says in there, today he said, to the Lord delivered you into my hands today. Does that maybe mean that he had access to you, you were there, but does God know that David will do what he has taught him to do and trust him? So deliver here means he gave him access to him, rather because delivered gives you this idea that he has laid him in your hands. And what I'm reading is that he has given David access to him, that if David were not a man of God, he would have killed him. He would have taken that opportunity, but because David is David, it's more like he just gave him access to him again just to prove a point.
Do you believe that God puts us into situations just to see what we will do and how we will manage the situation?
I think tests are we say this all the time, be careful what you pray for, because if you pray for patience, then you've got to be placed in positions where patience is required. right? So if the answer for me is if you consider that a test, then yes.
Okay, what do other people think?
I think God put us in situations, a lot of situations, he already know what the answer gonna be. But we just don't know until we put it well, we don't until we put in a situation.
You don't always know what you would do. You're right. Because sometimes we say, oh, I would never do that.
Well, it's just according to how strong your will is, you know? I mean, because we, right, and you know, when we want what we want, yet even though sometimes we realize what the outcome may be, but we still, you know, just go through life. I don't know, just my opinion.
Yep. No, that's good. Okay, James, 24 and 25, please.
Okay. It's actually 20. Yeah, 24. As surely as I value your life today, so may the Lord value my life and deliver me from all trouble. Then Saul said to David, may you be blessed, David, my son. You will do great things and surely triumph. So David went on his way and Saul returned home.
So this is very different. This is a very different outcome from Saul's perspective than we have seen up to this point. Do you get the feeling that it is the end? That Saul is sincere this time or no? You're on mute, James. I think I can hear you through the wall if you're trying to talk.
I said, it feels like, golly, I don't know how to say it. It feels like this is the end of Saul. It feels like Saul is giving up the ghost and saying, all right, enough is enough. That's what it feels like. And my end must be near.
Okay, what do other people think?
That verse 25, that 25, it said, then Saul said to David, may you be blessed, David, my son, you will do great things and surely triumph. I don't think I've ever heard him give a blessing to David.
Exactly. This is the first time I recall, now I could be wrong, so somebody look it up. But I don't think I recall him blessing him and even speaking words of prophecy, really. You will do great things and surely triumph. And why do we think he says this now? And we're pure speculation, right? No right or wrong. Why do we think he says this now? Because it's been a minute.
Yeah,
this has been going on for a while.
Yeah, this is, of course, speculation. But I just think after he's seen so many times that David had an opportunity to wipe him out. And I think he finally just, I'm not sure what brought him to the resolve. I think maybe this last encounter with David was part of it too, but that he just finally accepted God's will. That's how I see it. Okay.
You think he accepted God's will or just is the writing on the wall here?
A little bit of both.
At some point, you're just like, okay, I can't win. You know, it's like my Tar Heels last night. I'm like, Dad blasted.
Right.
Yeah.
And was he just tired too? You know, maybe just the adding that too was like, listen, this is enough. You know, this young man, he is just going to triumph over me, you know? And even though he wasn't serving God per se, Saul, he knew he was in God's hands.
Yeah.
You know, because he continued to prevail.
You know what? I think about football. We would play a team twice a year sometimes. You play a team a couple of times, a home, but you learn that, man, they're better than we are. And you hope for that one day when you happen to be better than them on that one day. And at some point when you don't win, you realize, I can't beat them. And you kind of, and it's a sad place to be there. But once you get to that place, you're willing to just say, hey, they're a good team. They're better than me. And maybe that's what David was saying. I mean, that's what Saul was saying. He's been anointed. He's a new king.
And at a minimum, he is a better person than me. And at some point that wins, right? And because David's clearly skilled, he's seen it. He's clearly a person of character when it comes to him, right? That doesn't mean he's perfect in every area of his life, but he clearly had great character relative to the king. He had a servant's heart. He was a leader. I mean, he had a whole lot going on that at some point, to your point, James, and whoever else said it, at some point you got to get to this place where you go, okay, I'm trying my best to beat this person. I'm trying. And I can't win. I can't win because all the things that are really important, they've got. And I don't. And when you are self-aware, at some point you have to become self-aware enough to know when you've been beat. And I think that is where Saul ended up at this point, is he's seen it all, which makes it easy for him to say, you're going to go off and do great things because I've seen you do great things. And you're going to triumph because I've seen you win. There's no reason this should not continue. You're doing it all right. And I think that's, you know, if we can finally give Saul some accolades, I think this is the time to give him because he's finally realized the true situation. Now, how much more could Saul have accomplished had he fully embraced David as his partner, as a commander in his army? The world will never know, right? But as we think about key themes of, let's call it chapter 26, we talk about God's protection, mercy and forgiveness, faithfulness and integrity. So what I want to do is I want to send you guys off to a breakout room, and we're going to do just call it 10 to 12 minutes. I'm going to put you in, I think there's 10 people. I'm going to put you in 3 groups. Okay, so one group will have 4. And here is the question. So I'm gonna tell you, I'm gonna pick 4 people and I'm gonna give you each a question. So whoever is in your group, this is the question that you will do. Okay? So don't look at all the questions. I'm gonna tell you which question, but I'm just gonna say, for example, James, you and whoever is in your group are gonna answer the question, what's the significance of the partridge reference in verse 20? Okay? So James, that is yours. So whoever's in your group, that's your question. Number 2, for who this is going to be whoever is in Watsika's group. In what ways can we apply the themes of mercy, forgiveness, and faithfulness in our own lives? So whoever's in Watsika's group, and Watsika, write this down. In what ways can we apply the themes of mercy, forgiveness, and faithfulness in our own lives? All right, and then whoever's in Jackie's group, now I'm gonna skip that because we just talked it. And that's a double 2 there, so I see that. Number 3, what role does trust play in our relationship with God, especially during difficult times? So Jackie, whoever is in your group, what role does trust play in our relationship with God, especially during difficult times? Okay, everybody clear? So James, you got question 1. Watsika, whoever's in your group, has what is question 2, the first question.
Okay.
2. And then Jackie, whoever's in your group, has whatever's the answer to question 3. Everybody clear?
And
All
we're
right. Yes, I'm gonna
Yeah,
put you in
yes,
breakouts.
yes.
Okay. James, you had a question?
I just want to make sure where we're at, verse 20 and 26, 25, I mean.
26 verse 20. 26 verse 20. Okay, let me find my breakout rooms. Now I gotta remember what I just said. So I put the right people in. All right. Give me just a second. Up. I said Jackie. Okay. Right. 3. All right, here we go.
We're back.
All right.
Jackie's group anyway.
Okay, sounds good. Everybody should be back right now. Everybody back? Fantastic. Fantastic.
Yes, we back.
Yay.
Back.
I saw the little microphones moving, so I know you all were talking.
Yeah, we were.
Yeah, what you were talking about on the talk show. Okay,
No.
James Michael, your group.
I'm gonna let another person talk, babe.
Okay.
Okay, so I was a part of Mr. Dimitri's group, and we came up with to the question of what's the significance of the partridge reference in verse 20. And so basically I'll just read that first and then go from there. Just say in NIV is, now do not let my blood fall to the ground far from the presence of the Lord. The King of Israel has come out to look for a flea as one hunts a partridge in the mountains. So a partridge is basically a bird, and it was kind of like, how would you find a flea in the mountains? And basically just kind of like Mr. Dimitrakis said, like a needle in a haystack kind of, and that would be like kind of faith finding it.
Okay.
So
Okay. James, anything to add?
Yeah, and just one thing there, and what the way you hunted a partridge in the old time was you would chase it till it got tired and throw sticks at it, and eventually it would get so tired that it would fall to the ground, and then you could catch it. But you had to find one first, which is the reference to the flea in the mountain.
Yes, yes.
So that's I think that's one of the pieces of this as well, is that, you know, the king is out here chasing and chasing and chasing, trying to exhaust David so that he might get a shot at getting him.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, you both nailed it. I mean, first if there weren't nearly as many people on the planet as there are today, but still, I often think if somebody went missing, how hard it would be to find them. A person could be anywhere. I mean, literally, you think about that. If somebody went missing and you had to find your child, you had to find your spouse, where in the world would you look? And so, and the point about the partridge, which is James hit it dead on the head, is that whole idea is that they get tired over time. And when they get tired, then you can catch them. But in these cases, David didn't get tired. he didn't get tired. And if anything, the roles were reversed. Okay, very good. Thank you. All right, Jackie, no, Watika, you have
Me.
the question.
Me.
Yes.
Me and Annie Rue
Annie
was
Rue.
on a team. And so
Powerful team.
I'm gonna say some and then I'm gonna let her come in. You know me, I ain't gonna say much. Okay. In what ways can we apply the theme of mercy, forgiveness, and faithfulness in our lives? Well, me and Annie Ruth said, when we said mercy, we just said with these ex-husbands we got or whatever, we showed mercy and had to give forgiveness because they wouldn't be here today if we didn't. But we thank God for God knowing us. We know us, but God knew us better.
Right.
But anyway, but I'm gonna go on with Saul and them. But anyway, so I think like with Saul and them, Saul David, the mercy that he showed to Saul and them, because every opportunity that God gave him to put him in his hands, he didn't take advantage of it. And you know, and he was like, you know, saying, man, you know, this man keep coming after me, but yet I'm not gonna do anything because of the love, first place, the loyalty to his kingship, and because God, he knew God had him, had David, and he knew, you know, what he wasn't supposed to do or whatever.
Yeah.
But basically that's it. Go on, Brandy, and if you can come right on in.
I think she covered it. She covered it all. You know, I'm thankful for the small groups because we were able to kind of put some real life examples of what mercy and forgiveness looks like. And as we were looking, like she said, as we were looking at what all Saul was doing to David, man, you know, on the surface of things, you know, he really had the right to retaliate, but he didn't. And so in a time where you're looking at somebody does you wrong, that whole mercy is, even though I can get you back, I'm seeing the bigger picture. Yeah. And then the forgiveness part too. It made me we kind of reference this in terms of how he always referred to Saul as the Lord's anointed, and how even in today's time when we have a lot of faith-based leaders whose lives don't look like they're on the path of what God would have them to be doing as God's anointed, we have to be mindful not to put our mouths and our voices against God's anointed, because just because people have, failed in a season of their life doesn't make them any less of God's anointed. So
Good.
that was another aspect we talked about too.
That's excellent. Thank you. All right, Jackie.
Okay, what role does trust play in our life, especially in difficult times? We talked about, first and foremost, trust is everything. We must trust and depend on God. Trust is confidence and reliance on God. So when we trust God, we believe that what it is that we're going through, that He is going to bring us through. Because we looked at some scriptures, and Jocelyn, in a moment you can go forth, but Jeremiah 29:11. For He knows the plans, the thoughts that He has for us. He has a plan regardless of what's going on in our life in those most troubling times. If we can understand that He has us in control, everything is in control. It's in His hands. Jocelyn?
Okay, and we also were talking about, besides the scriptures that we were talking about, that when difficult times, when there's an attitude of trust and confidence, that the Bible calls belief and faith. So to do what God has called us to do. So instead of being fearful, we have belief that God is saying what He said, that He's going to take care of us and watch us and guide us and lead us through. That is belief, believing in Him and trusting and having faith, because faith goes with all of that. Faith, trust, and belief all come together. We can't do anything without those three. We got to believe, we got to trust, and just have that confidence, knowing that God is right there on our side.
Amen.
And then before we go, then the scripture, Proverbs 3:5-6 is so great about trust. Trust in the Lord with all thine heart and lean not unto our own understanding. And that's what happens so often. We lean to our own understanding and we take it out of God, and put it in our hands and say, oh, maybe we can do it better, or we can do it quicker. I don't know if He's going to answer, etc. Yeah.
No, that's good. That's good. All right. Thank you all. That was fantastic, and great insights. Okay. Well, that is what we have for this week. Let me stop recording here. Do we